Hi, Internet. How you doing? Don't mind me looking down at my phone. Got to take care of a few things here real quick.
Be great if someone said, "Hey, you want me to start the countdown?" And you went, "Yeah, start the countdown.
Yeah,
I'm ready. I can't wait to see people. I was sick on Thursday. We had to cancel a show. Fuck yeah, let's do it, girly."
Cool. I won't send you the fantasy stuff yet then.
No, I'm not going to touch it till next show.
Okay, well, I still need to get it to you at least, don't I? I'm going to forget. Okay, fine, fuck it. I'll just won't do it.
Do it. Give it to me between shows.
Okay.
I'll see you then.
Oh, yeah. I hear you. I don't remember what else I have. I had something else up here that I needed, and I don't remember what it was. So, oh, well, there we go. And let's also text. I just texted Graham to text you because we're getting ready to start a fucking show, and he's supposed to call in the first fucking segment.
You said he might call in. You didn't say he was definitely calling in.
I confirmed with him that he was going to call in.
Hey, look, I do have it. Hey, he's already said all that. See, I just hadn't checked my phone, Sam.
Okay.
Because I don't check my phone during, sound check.
Well, that's because
I'm checking sound, just not the sound on my phone.
Okay. I'm just okay. I'm already done with you. I have been in this house with you for way too fucking long.
No shit. Get a job.
Jesus, I need a fucking job.
You fucking need a job.
I need a job so fucking badly. Just to get away from you.
I can't wait for you to get a job.
Okay, well, more reasons than one.
Mm-hmm. Sure, Billy wants to know if we're fully recovered.
Yes, we are. Well, I am at least. Mel's still a little sore, but she's getting there.
Does the Wolves co-host have to do 2 shots of Malort? One for Newcastle and one for Chelsea.
Probably.
Yeah, he does. He does. He gets to choose multiple arrays of Malort.
He says, Charbelly says, yes, he has chosen violence.
Yeah.
And I do not have to do any Malort. Fuck yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it must be nice to be a well-run club.
I was gonna say,
look at that with good management.
I mean, we're on the verge of becoming a well-run club because we got new ownership and all that good shit. But
I've never missed Steven Gerrard more than I do in this moment.
But I should not have to be doing a shot of Malort because we gifted you the fucking goal, and there was 2 penalties on 1 fucking corner kick that neither one got called. I mean, literally grabbed Calvert-Lewin by his neck and threw him to the ground, and then pushed Jesper Lindstrom into the ground. Like, at the same time, you're just like, all right, which one are they going to pick? Oh, neither. That's entertaining. That's a decision. Is Graham reached out to you about being on for the first segment, Mel?
He says, do you want me to call in when it's close to Arsenal?
Yep, very good. Okay, good deal. Well, then I'm ready to rock and roll if you are. Let's do a fucking show.
I'm like, I'll call you, jabroni.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, why are you not watching it live?
No, because he has fucking produced 4 daughters. 3 all within 4 years of each other.
My mother produced 4 daughters and went up school both ways to school in the snow.
Okay.
We're just ignoring that they have a brother.
I know. That's that's the whole thing is sure, whatever. Okay. Yeah. You couldn't figure out the sarcasm of the get over it fucking tone in my voice?
No, sorry, you're not doing anything.
Okay, I was like, I was ready. I was getting ready to fucking push the button. I was like, Jesus.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Push the button, Frank.
Hi, this is Russ Benson. I am a Liverpool supporter, and you're listening to Drunkard United Football Show. You all need Jesus.
One would say perhaps a little Jesus, right, Danny?
Definitely.
Or at least so TikTok likes to tell me all the fucking time. We are missing the young hot freshness tonight. A little car problem, so it's just going to be a 3 crew tonight, and I think we'll be all right, right? We feel good about this? Good. Let's start the show.
Born in the land of Bowie, Maryland. Bred to be a fan of fucking Everton. Punch you in the eye and drink your rye. Sam Houston.
Sam Houston?
Arsenal fans have another Sam. Right, the fucking Gooner Graham. Smell the Malort.
Hello and welcome to the DU Football Show, a completely biased recap of the English Premier League as told by three common American schmucks. Yeah, Mel, we're going to call you one of them today. I'm your host, Sam Houston, and across the way from me, back in again, was supposed to be back in on Thursday, but little sickness happened, just little sickness. 1/4 of the Whole Lot of Wolves podcast, and of course, my favorite person to follow on all social media after a Wolves win.
When's that going to happen?
Well, eventually. Danny, how you doing, good sir?
Doing great.
To be expected, we'll get into it, but it's a slightly tough run of games for you right now. And of course, on the ones and twos, producer Mel. How we doing over there, producer Mel?
I am alive and surviving, and that's pretty much all I can ask for today.
Yeah, pretty much all you can ask for, isn't it? You know, it's a touch cold out there, you know.
A wee bit,
Yeah,
nibbly.
you know, it's good thing strong men decided to go inside to give
Hey,
speeches.
you know what I did today?
Uh-huh.
I shoveled the walk. I shoveled the back patio. I played with the dog. I reinforced the chicken coop area. I spent a whole lot of time outside. It was a gorgeous day outside.
I spent the time inside writing notes. We're recording at the DU Public House just outside the nation's capital. You can check us out wherever you get podcasts. And, of course, streaming live every single Monday night. Should you want to chat with us, there's many ways that you can. Producer Mel, please tell the good people how they can get in touch.
Well, it is very simple. You can send us an email at dufootballshow@gmail.com. You can find us anywhere on social media at gmail.com. I mean, at dufootballshow@gmail.com. Online is DU Football Show. On all the socials is DU Football Show. Or sign up for Patreon, one little something or other.
That's a whole lot of words that really made
I
no
was not
sense.
prepared. I know you said you were going to be, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'm ready. I can do it.
Best cold reader in the business, boys
I'm
and
not
girls.
reading anything. That's the problem. If you had it for me, I could have read it.
And, be sure to, now that it's back, the cold 14 hours that we were all asleep without it was tough. But now that it's back, of course, check out our halftime check-ins on TikTok as well. And I believe we're streaming live right there right now also. So hi, TikTok people, if any of you are watching.
Hello, China.
Sam and myself both work in the wine and spirit industry, and both, and Danny for a brief moment too. And we all share a deep, passionate love for all things distilled spirits. So as the red-blooded Americans we are, we vow to have a drink in our hand throughout this show and every single show. The top 20 list continues, and here's a humdinger. We're finally drinking a bourbon. How about that? Danny, why don't you go ahead and tell us about number 14?
I'm amped to be here for a bourbon. So number 14 is the 2XO, the Kiawah blend, 52%. $100 a bottle. The panel rating is 93, and Shane English says, named for South Carolina's Kiawah Island, a special place to blender Dixon Deadman. This has a luscious nose of gingerbread, spearmint, cigar leaf, and chai spices. The palate stays the course, introducing cola, sweet tea, raisins, maplewood, and syrupy raspberries. While the whiskey's spiced aromas and flavors are more pronounced, apples, peaches, and fruit leather provide backbone. The finish is malty and stout-like, with roasted grains, charred oak, and dark chocolate flecked with sea salt.
All right, so we've thrown around some names before, like Jim Rutledge and Dave Pickerel and names like that. Dixon Deadman is very much kind of the palate when it comes to blending, right? When you take different whiskeys and blend them together. 2XO stands for 2 times oak. So everything they do seeds standard American white oak first, and then it sees other wood again. Now, that could be another version of American white oak. So when people want to think double oak, most popular one that everybody knows is Woodford Reserve's Double Oak. That is first in a 3 char and then second in a 4 char. And what that 4 char does is amp up kind of the caramel and everything. So if they're doing a secondary with new oak, that's normally what they're doing. They're umping the char to ump the dessert flavors. In this instance, using rum barrels, the cola smacks you in the face. This definitely kind of has that Coca-Cola kind of, Mexican Coca-Cola, like that big, heavy, real sugar kind of flavor to it. What do we think, kids?
Not bad. I'm partial to bourbons generally. I would say that, things that are ultra oaky, ultra smoky, not always my cup of tea, but whether it was the word setting it up for me or the bourbon itself, but the the sort of malty stout-like finish, like they said, that's kind of right up my alley. That's when I want something smoky, that's what I want out of it, is that sort of roasted.
Right. And I'll say on ice, it opens up a lot more. It takes away a lot of that heat, and those sweeter kind of notes, particularly the cherry cola and everything, really comes out of it as well, which is quite lovely. This is actually complete full disclosure. This is my first time liquid to lips. Now with the list, that's always the case. We haven't had these yet, but this is my first time liquid to lips with any 2XO. This is a brand that just kind of gained popularity over the past year, and color me impressed. He was previously with Kentucky Owl, which is a big brand that a lot of people have a lot of love for. I know one of our big listeners, Ken, is a huge Kentucky Owl head. Very good.
Yeah, I'm into it.
Yeah. And what else should we always do there, Danny?
I'm going to say drink responsibly.
There you go. That a boy. Cheers, sir.
Cheers.
All right. So a bit of a weird format this week. What we're going to do, because obviously we missed on Thursday due to me being very sick, but these things, like there's a few games you got to talk about from last week, and they also kind of play into everything as well. So we're going to open with the North London, as one club had a decent week, the other one had a nightmare, and somehow the marriage-ending derby works its way into it because they played both of our clubs and we played each other. So we're going to do it all together. Arsenal 2, Tottenham 1, Arsenal 2, Villa 2, Villa 1, Everton 0, Everton 3, Tottenham 2. So, Mel, I believe we have a special caller for tonight's opening segment about the North London derby.
Sounds
yeah.
First time, long time?
I was like, yeah, first time, long time. Listener, who is this?
Hey guys.
Oh, hi, you.
The better Graham.
Oh, the better Graham. Okay, so you're saying you're better than your wife? I'll tell her that.
No, my daughter.
Oh, okay.
She always comes on here saying some bullshit.
Well, because, she's awesome and you are.
Hella zesty.
That's just how it works.
You're welcome.
How is life with children going there, stud?
Fine. The littlest one is having some gastrointestinal issues, so we haven't been sleeping much. But other than that, everything's fine.
Oh, good. It's the gastrointestinal issues. We had a few of those last week.
The theme for this week.
Yeah, so I've heard.
So the North London derby, a bit of an interesting overall match. Obviously, both teams aren't really firing on all cylinders, and then come out. Tottenham gets the lead. You come back and take it back pretty quickly, but it just felt like a weird game, and I really kind of want to get your perspective on it, you obviously being the Arsenal supporter.
It was a bit of a weird game, but their lead that they took was not deserved. Start with that. Arsenal were well on top in those opening exchanges, but couldn't do anything with it. I don't even think they forced old boy into a save, did they? No. But the bulk of the play was Arsenal's, obviously. And then, and in typical Arsenal fashion, give up one stupid counterattack with one really dumb deflection, just a bit of a mistake, and we find ourselves behind.
Well, it was
kind of atypical of us recently.
It was the inspiration to the children, Sam. The fucking children. Youngman's son who scored that goal.
Yeah, off of somebody's ankle, oddly enough, which he's known to not care for ankles of other people.
Yeah, clearly.
One of the sexiest men in the world should know that.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking about Andres Gomez.
Oh, I'm aware.
He's that beautiful. We saw him in person. And Graham looked at me while we saw him at the bridge, looked right at me, and he went, yeah, he's really that good looking.
He is that attractive. Yeah, 100%.
It looked like Trossard had himself a day there at the North London derby.
Yeah, he did. He's an odd one. Apparently, he's rejected a contract extension, which is disconcerting. Disconcerting, rather. But he he steps up when we need him. It seems to be, there are some goals in some situations where I wouldn't say hide, but you can tell he's just not interested, I guess. Versus these big occasions, he always seems to come up trumps, which is great. And bags the equalizer. And we were away from that point. I mean, for me, there was one or two chances in the second half for David Raya to do something with. One, he almost, he kind of made a meal of it. But other than that, forward from the equalizer, I think Arsenal pretty much dominated the rest of the game, really.
Yeah.
Without Tottenham really doing much. Now, it would have been nice for us to stand on their throat a bit, given how many defensive issues they have and everything else. I would have, we spoke off air a while back about Arsenal needs like what City did to Ipswich, for instance. They just need a day to go out and have fun and remember that they're footballers.
Right.
And, a 1-0 or in this fashion, a 2-1. Now, the manner of this is going to breed some confidence.
Of course.
But it would have been nice to say we went in there and took them out 4-1. You know what I mean? That would have been the equivalent of a 8-0, what City did to Ipswich. And it just would have given us a boatload of confidence for us to move forward over the next few weeks, because we're going to fucking need it.
Right. Do you think that not being able to put the foot on the throat of Tottenham lended to the downfall in your match against Villa?
Not necessarily. Ollie Watkins had scored on his last 4 trips to the Emirates. That was always going to happen. But I think the first goal kind of coming out of nowhere. I mean, part of it, our defense is at least a touch makeshift. Now, Jurriën Timbers played a lot of center back in his career, but not for us, right? Because Saliba and Gabriella pretty much always fit. Thomas Partey is not a right back. I would have liked to have seen, personally, I would have liked to have seen maybe bring in Zinchenko and run a back 3, or Tierney and try to run a back 3 and have 3 actual defenders, Gabriel in the middle, and then either Zinni or Tierney on the left, and keep Timber on the right, and then Partey in front of them as a security blanket. And when we don't have the ball, dropping in as that second center back. But Yuri Tillman's run is kind of it was Partey that was marking him, I believe, and it was a good ball put into a very dangerous area. Ride didn't come for it, and Tillman, with the diving header, found his half yard of space and got after it. That can happen. It does happen frequently against us, where somebody just switches off for a moment. And then Ollie Watkins, of course, always scores against us and always scores at the Emirates. Obviously, a boyhood Arsenal supporter. He loves it there.
Now, here's a couple of questions for you then. In the regards to Saliba, is this anything long term, or was it just a knock before the match and that's it?
Haven't heard full-on updates. It doesn't seem to be, because if it was long-term, Arsenal internet would be melting down, and they're not. Okay, fair enough. So, a week or two, I'd imagine tops. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. So it shouldn't be too terribly concerning. What I am concerned about is they updated Saka pre-match, and that looks like it's going to be more, kind of mid-March. Is we're not going to see him till then.
And you want him for Champions League 2, and there's
for everything. He's our best player. You know what I mean? Besides Odegaard, he's our best player, and obviously since he's been out, even when Odegaard was out, we still scored some goals here and there.
Right.
Odegaard's primary role is not to score goals. It's to create things, and it seems without Saka's industry and ability to stretch the defense on that right wing, people are able to focus more on Martinelli, which is terrible for us because we kind of, having those dual wingers that can stretch that defense is where we create those gaps in the middle for Havertz to run into and for O to operate and everything else. We haven't been able to do that without Saka. Like I said, when O was out, we were still scoring goals.
Right.
Because we we created those spaces still. It was just whether or not we could exploit them. And more often than not, we were still able to do something. Without Saka, the whole kind of attack sort of not falls apart, but it's a lot less exciting.
So next question, who hurt Kai Havertz? Does he need a hug? Are things going to come back for him here? Because he just looks, particularly from the FA Cup, like he didn't look like he wanted to take that penalty.
Who, Kai Havertz? I don't know, man. I don't know. The goal was a good take. It's very hot. Be careful, honey. Sorry, feeding the kids dinner.
Yeah.
It was a well taken goal. He probably should have had one against Villa. It might have been offsides. I think it still would have went to VAR, despite what they called was a handball. But you can't really say it. I guess you could say it's not conclusive. But the goal was given on the field.
Right.
I don't think it should have been overturned based on the angle that we were all shown on TV for the Villa match. But I think
clearly those red glasses will make it definitely look like it wasn't a handball or make it look fuzzy. I can understand that, Graham.
Well, I mean, it definitely came off his hip. I mean, that's without a doubt. It definitely came off his hip. Whether or not it touched the underside of his arm on the way by is something different. But, that just is what it is. Those decisions are going to go against. Sometimes you'll get them. It's also one of those that they could have been given for offside as well. But, it is what it is. I think he needs a solid run. He needs something. He needs to score an assist in 2 or 3 in a row and kind of just believe in himself again. I just don't, his wife's pregnant. I think Odegaard's wife's pregnant. A lot of players have a lot of other things on their mind as well. To the point where pre-FA Cup, one of the reporters asked Arteta if he was putting something in the water at Arsenal or encouraging them to sleep with their partners, which I thought was a bit strange.
Okay.
That is an odd question.
Mel's got a question for you.
Sure, Billy wants to know a couple things. First, who hurt Havertz? Same guy who mindfucked Ramsdale, ruined a world-class keeper, and he's wanting to know if there's any updates on Ben White.
World-class.
Ben White is back in full training. Should be available soon. Next couple weeks is the last thing I heard, which is obviously welcome and exciting because we can have our full complement of players, especially if Saliba does end up being out for a little bit. Ben White played center back at Brighton. He played center back here. But I think
Graham, don't go giving him too much information. He's only asking for his fucking fantasy team. Settle down. That's only concerned about Ben White is for his fantasy team.
Smart man.
Now, the other question I had for you, Sam, is a little more directed towards your nemesis, Tottenham. And we're going to get on to it after we're done with you. We're going to talk about Everton and their win over them and all of that. But please chime in with your thoughts on that.
Nothing specific, just in general.
Yeah. Well, hold on. Let me. Graham, hold on 1 second. Let me finish it. I just had to catch my breath there. Remember, been a little sick. We know they're decimated, right? We know that they've got a lot of injuries right now. They're playing, teenagers in the back. They're playing teenagers in the middle of the pitch. Now Newcastle did that pretty much the entirety of last year, and they seem to manage just fine and not be in a relegation fight, which Tottenham now is, because they're right at the bottom. They're just behind us. Just ahead of us. How much more patience is there for Ange Ball, and what do you think about Tottenham as a whole?
Well, everything I've seen from Tottenham supporters online and everything else seems to be more or less aimed at Daniel Levy and the board rather than at Ange. Mm-hmm. Some of them are growing a bit disillusioned, it seems, but really, it's they want Levy to move on. They want somebody to back the manager, stop cycling through managers. Eventually, the buck is going to stop with the guy making the decisions, right? If you change a manager and it all goes well, like everybody was praising Ange last year when he took over, but now this year, obviously, they're faltering. They have an ungodly amount of injuries, specifically focused on their back line. But that doesn't explain their attack, really.
Right.
You still have Pedro Porro, one of the best wing backs in the world at the moment. So you can't tell me that just Destiny Udogie is changing everything, because from Yves Bissouma forward, they're operating at 100% capacity. Why aren't they scoring goals? Well, that seems to be the system. That seems to be the manager. The problem is you have, and we said it at the time, over the last few years, you go from Mourinho or, kind of Nuno, Mourinho, Tuchel, all these, or Conte rather, all these managers that seem to be like the antithesis of each other. Like one wants to play attacking, then you bring in the super defensive coach, and this, somebody else that wants to play kind of measured, and then now Ange who's gung ho. There's not a lot of joined up thinking. There's a lot of players that get bought and sold over the course of that time that may or may not fit those other managers, and Tottenham are known for spending money anyway.
Very good.
So you're stuck with this kind of amalgamation of players and people at the club that just don't know what they're doing. And I think the Tottenham supporters are kind of over it. They're just kind of bent on Levy trying to sell the club. That doesn't benefit him. He's not doing that.
Well, well,
but they got to fix something soon. They're only 6 points or 8 points, whatever it is, above the relegation zone.
So, hey Graham, one more thing.
Yeah.
I love doing that bit. I love that bit. It's the best bit every time. Danny, get your kind of opinions on, first off, Arsenal, and, they get a win at the North London. It was, they controlled everything, but it didn't really feel convincing, did it?
Yeah, I mean, I was struck by how I caught only the second half, and it's one of those where you, if you saw the result and the scores, you just be like, cool, business as usual. Arsenal still struggling, but they got the win, and everything's fine. But watching the actual game just looked totally different from that. It just didn't look like business as usual from either teams. Like, Spurs like sort of stepping up in the first half, but still having their like, as Sam Graham talks about, their insane struggles, despite the fact that it's really just defenders that are the problem. And then Arsenal, I think, sort of exactly like Graham said, is just like it's worse than it looks from the final result. Like the struggles are evident there, and they ought to be better. I mean, I agree with him.
Well, and then you couple that with what Liverpool ended up doing, and we're going to talk about that in Oso. There was a chance to really kind of gain some momentum, and they did in the midweek, and then over the weekend, Liverpool does what they do at the death,
right?
And you really needed to win, and you're up comfortably 2-0 against Villa, and frankly, you just let Villa back in it, because I mean, Mel, you can mention to it as well. You were watching the match. Like, Villa did not look all that great in the first half. They looked really fucking lethargic and not together, and they didn't have a particularly good game against Everton either.
No, they definitely, at Everton, that should have been a much higher scoring game, but
yeah, I hear you.
It's okay, because Watkins is back, and he has now scored and gotten himself back on the board. And during the other match, he saw that Duran was going to come on, and immediately was like, "Oh, I better get my shit together right now."
That was a funny bit. That Duran was on the sideline,
warming up,
ready to go, and then he scores, and it's like, and Emery just puts his arm around.
This
Duran,
is like a manager's dream.
Yeah, go put the jacket back on.
Should have 11 players that are just one step away.
I mean, one was due, and then he pulls out. Then he pulls out Leon Bailey, and they're like, "Is Bailey going to score?" And it's like, he almost got there.
Hey, Mel, would you mind passing me the old barrel-aged Malort, please?
Oh, sure.
That's not
the barrel-aged. That's not it. Well, we have so much Malort in this house. I have to go through all the bottles to figure out which one it is.
Well, they're actually all a little low. I got to go buy some more Malort, believe it or not. Good Lord.
What I'm looking at by all of this means that I'm the best. Villa, because I drew Arsenal, I beat Everton, you beat Tottenham. I mean, everything's coming up Villa.
All right, Tottenham's the shit. They're the worst.
Well, yeah.
That's easy enough to say. That would, in fact, Arsenal has a chant for that. What do you think of Tottenham? Shit. What do you think of shit? Tottenham. Thank you.
Awesome.
Our match was, it should not be in the opening segment because it was a really shitty game, but I have to do a shot of Malort and we should probably talk about it. Our game sucked.
It wasn't interesting.
Yeah, it was Moyes' first game back.
You did not get the manager bump.
I will say this.
Because it's not a new manager.
No, it wasn't a new manager. But I will say this. He certainly put out the team. He saw what he wanted. He made adjustments, and those adjustments certainly fucking worked on Sunday when they played. And we'll get to that game in a second. I will say should have been a draw. And not even because there was 2 missed fouls on 1 corner kick that should have been called for a penalty. It's really that play for Watkins to score the goal should have never fucking happened. Branthwaite made a bad pass. He was out of position, and him being out of position is what led to Watkins being wide open to get the 1-on-1.
Yeah.
So it was neither team played to deserve to win that game. That game screamed 0-0 draw. It was the most oh-so game I've ever seen in my life. And in fact, I've spoken too much about it. I'm going to drink my fucking Malort.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Love it.
And then Sunday happened.
You had a good day.
I don't know how I stayed quiet to keep you and let you sleep. Because the first goal from Dominic Calvert-Lewin was fantastic. And considering the drought he's been in and his not really being able to create goals, the goals he has scored have been pretty much poachers' goals. Yep. And the fact that he got that ball in his foot, did a back and forth, juked 2 different guys, had the wherewithal to go near post instead of far post. I mean, it was a pretty fucking goal. He
was inhabited by the ghost of Calvert-Lewin of 2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. It was like suddenly Carlo was on the sideline telling him what to do. I would say that some of that also comes from the fact that Moyes sets up differently than Dyche. And people are going to say, oh, well, they're both defensive managers. Yes, but they're defensive in different regards, right?
Right.
Dyche's is pressure that is withstand pressure, route 1, get up the field, and let your guys try to individually do their thing. Also score a lot off set pieces. Where Moyes is more of an explosion of counterattack, right? It's win the ball quickly, go quickly as a group. And you could see that in the very perfect example of that would be the Njai goal. Right? That win the ball in the middle of the field, nice little route through ball right into the hole. And Njai just, Dragonson didn't know what the fuck he was going to, like, you got to defend, bruh. You got to step up.
Right.
Like, you got to actually step to the man. That's what you have to do. And he just didn't. And Njai was like, okay, fine. So I can go right? No, I'll go left. And boom, put it right up in the top shelf. And Tottenham looked completely lost, and you can't just blame it all on the fact that it's only kids playing, right? And it's like, yeah, you lose Solanke right before the match, and that's a hell of a hit, right? But it's still Son, Kulusevski, and Johnson up there. Like, you don't have
ought to be good enough,
and ought to be good enough to beat fucking Everton, right?
Right
now, and obviously coming into Goodison Park is a different beast. All of that, I get that. And then the elbow to Dragonson, which if he's injured, why didn't you just take him off? Why wasn't he moved off the field? Like, they left him on the field. They ended up being 7 minutes of stoppage time, which great. Thanks. Own goal. Appreciate it. Like, yeah. I'll fucking take that. And then you go into the second half and really, yes, a couple of good pieces of one really good piece of individual work from Maddison, and then the goal by Kulusevski, which was just a perfectly placed ball.
Right.
But at that point, Everton's got the foot off the gas. They're worried. Yeah. They're just, we're not gonna. You know what? We've given away 2-0 leads. We're not gonna give away a fucking 3-0. That's what the attitude was, and you could tell.
Yeah.
And Richie's goal was a plethora of mistakes by Everton. It just was bad. bad mistakes by Everton. And Richie scored, and of course Richie didn't celebrate because Richie's a fucking class act, and I love that fucking guy, and you guys should loan him to us for the rest of the season. I would love that. Thank you very much. But it is kind of interesting that, like, all of the swan songs for people like Iwobi scored on us, Richie scored on us, like that Gato Nana didn't score on us.
I mean, Iwobi's just one of those players. He can't not score against former teams or against Wolves for some reason.
It's what he does.
So many of the things I said about the Arsenal Spurs game apply here, where you see the final score and you think like, oh, Everton smash and grab, Tottenham aren't that great. Totally understand what happened in that game. And then you watch the actual game and it's like, honestly, the 2 goals flatter Tottenham. Mm-hmm. I switched over to this game because I was like, what is going on here? And watching them even for, I think it was like, 50, 60 minutes, it should have been 3-0. Like, even in this season, I don't think I've seen them play so disjointed. Mm-hmm. It's stunning. And also beautiful if I weren't below them.
Right. Well, and here was kind of my question to you in that regards. Is the same thing I had talked about Sam, is like, should we be concerned about Ange's job? What do we think here?
I mean, it's one of those where from an outsider's perspective, like, this feels like it has to cross a line. Right. Even if it's like just a ego thing or a line in the sand thing from the board, like, there's kind of a point in which, and this is sort of what happened at Wolves with Ipswich, the loss against Ipswich, where it's like, yeah, the loss itself, that specific game, really not that important in the grand scheme of things, but like, you've kind of crossed a line in the sand here where we can't not act and look like we're not doing nothing. So, I mean, I don't know. Spurs fans will know better than I do, like, how dire their situation is, squad wise, but like, you have to be expecting more.
I feel like my personal take is this all comes to fruition after the League Cup semifinal. Right. If he does not advance them to the final, he's gone. If he advances them to the final, he has the job until the final.
What was the scenario under Mourinho? Wasn't he fired just before the League Cup final?
Yeah. Well, the League Cup semi, I think it was.
Semi?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right before it.
I was just thinking about how history might be repeating itself.
Like, it seems like they're actively, like, kind of like trying to sabotage them actually winning a trophy. And I think that for Spurs fans, at least if I put the shoe on my foot and it was my club, all I would care about right now is the League Cup. I wouldn't give a shit about the table. I'd be like, we'll figure out the table later. Like, we'll figure it out in March. Yeah, because like, all that matters is the fucking League Cup. All that matters is a trophy.
Exactly. You could fire Ange. You could bring in, insert your favorite manager. You could bring in, 3 players who are at the top of their game right now, and you're not getting in the top 4. So, like, what the hell's the point? Right. Other than just let's put something together to get this trophy.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because, I mean, and of course, with that trophy also equals European play, which still means you get the money and all that. But that's not honestly what the Spurs supporters care about. No. It's the fucking trophy.
Does the League Cup even get you Europa League? Is it Europa Conference?
It gets you Europa Conference, I believe.
Oh, man. Weren't they in the Europa Conference with Nuno or something? Or Conte?
No, they're with Conte right now, or no, they're in nothing right now.
I'm usually the one who remembers these things, and it's disappointing that I don't, but also I watched them a lot as a hater back then, which...
No, they're in Conference League right now, aren't they? They finished top 8 last year, didn't they?
Yeah.
So they did. So they're in Europe currently.
As a dyed in the wool hater, there's nothing I like more than big clubs having to play in the Conference League. I would die to be in the Conference League.
Oh yeah, exactly.
But I love watching them grit their teeth and play those games.
Oh yeah, I mean the Conference League was made for us and you and West
to
Ham
aspire
and
to
Fulham, like for us to be able to play European football, because frankly our leagues deserve that. They're just stronger leagues, right? But I do have to say I thoroughly enjoy just watching this epic fucking meltdown of Spurs.
Oh, Lord.
All right, so now we turn our attention. We were initially going to have Hiram, so this was all going to make more sense together because this is all 4 teams that played each other, and 2 of them would have been the 2 of you, but at least you're here, so it's going to be you 2. And that's how it's all going to work out. And one of these games, ironically, was probably the most entertaining game of the weekend. Chelsea 3, Wolves 1. I typed that incorrectly. Newcastle 3, Wolves 0. Chelsea 2, Bournemouth 2. Bournemouth 4, Newcastle 1. The tough run just fucking continues for you guys right now. The good news, you're halfway fucking through it. And you're still not in the drop. That's the silver lining, right?
You just summed up our entire league. We're halfway through it, but we're not in the drop on goal difference, I believe. And only because City decided to show up against Ipswich. Mm-hmm. This has been fun. I'm going to head out, you guys.
So who else do you have? You still have Liverpool, right? And
oh yeah, we play Arsenal next. I was meant to ask Sam Graham, how many of these center backs would be out at Molineux, but I will admit that it's really not going to matter. We concede from set pieces every single game, and Arsenal are really good at that. So I don't think it's going to matter. We could put away 7 goals against Arsenal, and they're still going to win by 8 set piece goals.
Yeah, that has been dire for you guys this year. Has been set piece work. Do you see anything that Pereira is doing that's improving set pieces, and that it's just, because let's face it, like the game against Everton, that was fucking horrible, right? I mean, it might have been even uncomfortable for you to watch, even though your team was winning. And it was all set piece goals. All 4 of them were set piece goals, and they were easy. Yeah. They were very easy. Yeah. And the one at the end was obviously a Dawson's own goal. But the other one, Calvert-Lewin hit, it was a Calvert-Lewin goal. It just happened to hit Dawson. Happened to come off Dawson. Yeah. Right. And it was going in the net no matter what. The point is the man had a wide open header inside the 6. A goalie couldn't seem to get out to get a ball inside the 6, and no defender was pushing him off the ball, which also made no fucking sense at all. Are you seeing things that Pereira is doing that is improving at least that, where you're like, hey, look, they're actually covering fucking people on set pieces?
So I before I headed down here, I put out on my Twitter, to the poor schmucks who follow me, that, if they wanted to watch me get grilled by non-Wolves fans, that if they're into that, they should tune in. And this is exactly what I was talking about. So the answer is like a qualified yes. It's like better, but that's only because it was so abject in the first half of the season. Right. Honestly, and I have blocked out the Everton game largely, but I would say that like the Everton set piece goals that we conceded were not even the worst set piece goals that we conceded in the first half of the season. Wow. Like we've had literal just like, a great example, even though it was a good result for us. We drew at Forest early in the season, but it was like, oh, they have a corner. Let's leave Chris Wood unmarked. The tall guy who always scores against us and also would love to score a header off a corner. Like, it's just like, it's kind of the stuff that like, if you'd never played soccer before, you would be forgiven for not understanding that. But any level beyond that, it's like kind of unforgivable to ever concede that specific kind of goal.
Like you're watching it happen going, maybe somebody should mark him.
Right.
Maybe somebody should mark that guy. Oh, fuck, he scored.
Yeah. It's like your nightmare of like, you have a friend over who doesn't watch soccer and then they concede that goal and then they're like, oh, should they cover that guy? It's like, yes. Yeah, they should.
Yeah, that should be very covered.
So back to your question, like it is better in the sense that like the set piece goals that we're conceding are still not good. They are bad, but they at least take some level of doing from the opposition team instead of just like leaving their very tall striker open. So it's like better, but not better enough. And I've sort of come to accept that through the rest of this season, like we're probably just going to keep conceding set piece goals. We just have to make it harder for them to do it.
Right. Well, now, what's interesting about this one versus the next one, because the next one's going to be kind of cut and dry, but with this one, you had to feel like there was somewhat of a chance because Chelsea really hasn't been playing well. They've been giving away leads. Like, it's like, okay, we might actually have a chance in this one.
Oh yeah, I did feel hope before the game. It's hard to remember that feeling right now. But in a weird way, when I was driving down here, I was thinking about how both the Newcastle 3-0 and the Forest 3-0 that came before it felt like there was more optimism to be gained in those two games than this 3-1 against Chelsea, because like we were still creating opportunities, we just weren't putting them away. And over the course of the season, our forwards have been like actually relatively good. And so like we've conceded more goals than Southampton, but we are like objectively better in the table than them. So like we were creating opportunities even without Cunha in those two games, and it looked like, okay, we're going to put these away, especially against worse teams. It's going to be fine. Whereas Chelsea, like even though we actually managed to score in this game, it just looked like we had not woken up for this one. And like, I think that Chelsea weren't even particularly good. I think that they will be happy to have had that win to sort of try to turn the corner. But at the same time, they didn't have to be particularly good. When we concede sort of like sloppy goals or, you know, things from set pieces, a team doesn't have to be particularly at the races. I mean, you couldn't even say that we shut down Cole Palmer. I think he was still suffering from whatever it is that Chelsea's suffering, where they're not like quite clicking right now.
I think you guys did a pretty good job of beating him up, though, in the middle of the field. There was a couple of good hard fouls on him that seemed to slow him down a little.
Yeah, but, you know, they didn't need to. And so it's like, I actually felt like way better after those last 3-0s than I did after this one. But that being said, we are talking like an hour and a half after full time here.
Of course. Now, that being said, you have some choices here.
I have a lot of choices.
Three different Malorts. So we've got the OG, if you've never had it, and then we've got the barrel aged, and then we got pumpkin spice. Those are going to be part of injury time, so don't even look at those.
Okay, that's fair. So I have had Malort before, and there's a possibility that my friend Todd, who's up in Minnesota with Minnesota Wolves, is watching, and he recently said that he looked, and is a big Malort aficionado, he looked at the barrel aged, and his wife said that they could not get it. And he was disappointed. So I think as a shout out to him, I'll have to do the barrel aged, and I'm going to regret every second of what I just said, because I'm not a big fan of Malort, and this is going to scare me a little bit. Oh, Lord.
Here we go.
Here we go.
There it is.
Well, there's no question in the world that I certainly deserve this after that Wolves performance. Also, who knows? Cunha looked pretty disinterested. He also had the flu. Maybe he's going to Arsenal. Yeah. If so, good luck, Sam Graham. All right. That was something.
It's barrel aged, so it's just kind of mellowed. But I mean, it's still mellowed earwax threw up.
I was going to say barrel-aged earwax. Right. That's exactly what it is.
So it's slightly softened, you know. And don't keep that glass too far, because you got another one to do there, stud. That's there. In the case of Newcastle, you ran into a fucking buzzsaw.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Isaac is now on 8 games straight of scoring. He's just a machine. They're seemingly getting it together, and playing at St. James is fucking impossible. It's just that match. I don't know where you came in with any optimism into that one. That's one I'd be going, if we get a draw, I'll be amazed.
I had no optimism going into it, except that I thought that we were sort of like producing a bit more under Pereira, but just like vaguely, there's an outside chance of some miracle. I actually had more optimism coming out of it, just because I thought that like we created decent chances. If we put away even half of them, I think that could be like at the end of the game, if that's 3-2 away at Newcastle, I think a lot of Wolves fans are saying like, we're still on the way up. things are going to be okay. Whereas like 3-0, it's hard to feel that way. But, you know, you watch the game and I think that like the chances are there. And I think that their back line is still extremely fallible. And we showed that. And I think that their next game that we're going to talk about showed that eminently. And it was still just silly defensive errors, like literally leaving Isak kind of wide open to receive a pass. And part of that is because we are still playing with a makeshift back line, and the blame for that is mostly on the board and not just on injuries, although injuries are a part of it.
Right.
And so, like, we've had this experiment of Matt Doherty at center back, and he has been serviceable, but he's also not a center back. And what happens is you leave someone like Isak open, who's literally scored a goal in every one of his last 8 games.
Right,
So
precisely. So what I kind of want to do is open up a bigger discussion here, because this is something we're involved in as well, right? We're down there at the bottom, and we got ourselves a little bit of breathing space with a 4-point gap, but still there. And you're level on points with the bottom 3. My general impression, and Graham has tended to agree with me, is that your team is not a great team, but certainly when you were in dead last, too good to be dead fucking last. Right? And we were like, okay, once they finally get on the other side of the tunnel of the just horrid schedule start to the season, that you guys would be all right. And then you shit the bed.
Right.
Like, I mean, in the prime example is, frankly, that Everton match. Like, Everton were playing like dog shit.
Yes.
And Everton were about to go into a very, very tough part of December. And you guys just flat out shit the bed in that one. What are your general feelings? Do you feel like this team can figure out a way to survive? What do you think of the teams that are down and around it right now, between, you know, us, you, the 3 that are already down, and of course, let's go ahead and throw in Tottenham because it's just funny.
Why not? Man United, if we're feeling salty enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say that generally, and especially, like, I'll just even throw in the last, like, 2.5 or 1.5 years, so basically back to when Lopetegui came in. The players that are at Wolves, most of them are still, like, very far from, like, a relegation team. Like, if you could get things clicking, and, you know, this is me fully with, like, Wolves glasses on, you know, like, this is a team that should be mid-table, maybe even pushing for Europe, but
they were at one point.
And they were at one point. But, you know, as I'm sure you and many listeners are aware, like, the board sort of not investing at critical moments has really dogged us for the last 2 or 3 years. And then you also have, like, I think that, like, the vibes currently are extremely off, which I don't know how exactly you measure that, but
it hurts though.
Yeah,
if the team's
exactly.
if the team's not feeling good about what they're doing, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It hurts.
And I'd like to just point out at this moment that, like, I don't want Gary O'Neill back. I don't think that he deserved to keep his job particularly, but the argument that I sort of gave in a, you know, maybe more or less devil's advocate sort of way for when he was, you know, hovering around the sack is that, like, this is a coach that the players seem to vibe with, and, like, they enjoy that he is, like, very recently a player, and so there's sort of a camaraderie there. And so, like, even if they're not doing well and he is not quite adequate, like, at least they're all together and they can, like, make something happen.
Right.
I am concerned now that Vitor Pereira is very separate from the group and the vibes are not good. And so, like, you look back at last season where no one gave Wolves a chance, and Gary O'Neill came in 3 days before the season, and I did your ridiculous show with my tie on.
I definitely had you going down.
Yeah. You know, like, the reason why that worked is because the vibes were really good between the manager and the players. And I'm not sure that that's the case now. So, like, I think that, like, yes, in a perfect world, these players have the talent to fully get out of this. I believe that these players, this is an amazing statement, but, like, in a perfect world could finish above both Man United and Spurs, which I would desperately love. But the vibes currently don't feel that way. And I don't think that, like, we're really going to get through this in an easy way. And I think that an Everton fan can like fully like understand what that means, where it's just like, we might get through this kind of like relatively comfortably. We could stay up with games to spare, not sweating, but it will be painful the entire time.
So you start to look at the schedule and you go, what games can we win?
Right.
The other thing too is you look at the run that you're currently going through, and after, by the way, playing all the big dogs, you then play Bournemouth and Fulham, who are both on form and playing out of their fucking minds, right? And by the way, Bournemouth, someone who kicks the shit out of all the teams you play, you're playing right now.
Exactly.
They love to beat good teams, right? And what I think you start to look at is after that, it's like, okay, well, when do we play Southampton? When do we play Ipswich? When do we play Leicester? Do we get them in our building or is it in their building, right? And you start to go, those are the points, right? This is how we get to 34. Because honestly, I don't think 39 is what you need this year. I think
34, 35 is probably
a good bet. And my hot take, I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. Those three teams that are in the relegation ain't coming out of the relegation again.
Maybe.
I really don't think so.
I really hope you're right.
Because also, it may be hard for you. It's about to get real fucking hard for Ipswich. And they just had their run. They had their little run where they got some wins and they got some points. And now it's going to get real fucking tough for them. And we'll talk about it in Oso. We just saw the first example of it getting really fucking tough for them. Yeah. And their next game is fucking Liverpool. Have fun with that.
Yeah. And so, to the extent that anybody who's watching is like enjoying me on the hot seat, this is your like narrative for the rest of the season, is that like, yes, totally. The problems at the beginning of the season were that we had all of the top teams at home, and then we had all of the like kind of vaguely winnable games away. And even those were like not great. It was like Brentford, where it's like, yeah, but you could still lose to Brentford away and not feel bad about that.
Right. They're a very good home team.
Yeah, we had a terrible game against them separate from that. But anyway,
got a draw against Forest at the City Ground. That ain't easy to fucking do.
Honestly, a weird like high point of our season at this point. But yeah, I would say that like for the rest of the season, you have to look at the difference between a team like Wolves and a team like Ipswich, who like, the difference is that when you are newly promoted and you think that like anything can happen, we expect to go down, we could just fight our asses off and like make the season something. And for me personally as a player, like maybe get a move, or who knows what happens with my career if I like give it my all.
Right.
Whereas contrast that with Wolves, where you have a bunch of players who like, some of them I like desperately love. They're some of my favorite players in the time I've been following Wolves, but like who I think are thinking of other things. I mean, I kind of alluded earlier to like Cunha maybe eyeing the door, even if that means in the summer. And it's just like, that does not set you up well for like who has the most fight through the last 4 months. Whereas like Ipswich look like they want to fight even when they're getting completely tonked by City, and it's like, are Wolves going to have that kind of fight when we're out there, playing Ipswich or something? Like, when we're playing those games that are winnable, like I still think that like quality wise, Wolves better than Ipswich, better than several of the teams that are above us, but it's not going to matter if the players aren't showing up like they did against City or against Chelsea. Don't go watch that game. It was awful.
A lot of what I take is who are teams that have been there before and know how to survive. You've been there before, you know how to survive. Yeah. And we'll, again, more because I want to transfer over to talking a little bit about Bournemouth and Newcastle and all of that, is the thing that is the great equalizer in that regards is those teams may not know any better when they're fighting, right? But they're also prone to making mistakes, and they're prone to, whereas you guys will go, oh, we have Everton at home, we're going to figure out a way to at least get a draw. Yeah. Because that point means, or better yet, because Everton at home is one you want to win, right? Yeah. But let's say, oh, we have United at home. We're going to figure out, and I know you already beat them at home, but that's the idea. It's like, we're going to get one of those big clubs that come in, right? One of the bigger, we're going to figure out a way. We got Arsenal coming in this weekend. We're going to figure out a way to get a 1-1.
I mean,
because that's the things that a team that's been in the hunt in that fight, they just know how to do at that time of the year.
Yeah. So again, for the people who are watching solely to make me look uncomfortable is, so think about what's going through my mind, which is that, can Ipswich ship more goals than Wolves do? This week? Yes. We won on that one. And is it possible that the players who maybe are eyeing the door will play better because of that? Like Cunha, maybe he will start playing out of his mind to get a move, which would really help us not get relegated. But that glosses over a ton of problems with the ownership.
I'll give you a direct example. And this really comes down to the player's character, right? So it's what is Cunha? And Cunha's always seemed like a workhorse for you guys, like a real kind of engine guy.
Yeah.
Was the year with Frank.
Right.
Richarlison was sold that summer.
Right.
And he was definitely going out the door, and he was injured. He flat out admitted he was injured.
Right.
And yet he still managed to fucking score that goal against Palace that got us to 2-2 and then eventually win and end up being safe. And he's even gone back and said about it. He was like, he's like, I knew I was injured. I knew I was done. I knew I was getting sold. Like, I knew all of that. And all I wanted to make sure I did was make sure that the people at Goodison didn't go down.
Right.
It wasn't that Everton didn't go down. It was that
for what it's worth,
at Goodison didn't go down.
For what it's worth, like, I think Cunha is very much the same kind of person. Like,
he rubs me that way.
He seems genuinely to love, like, the fans and the city and whatever. Yeah. That doesn't mean that he's not licking his lips at the idea of going to Arsenal or whoever, but like he seems to genuinely love being there at the moment.
Yeah, he's excited about getting 150 a week.
Yeah,
man.
that is my great hope, is that he feels exactly that way.
I hope so too. The Cherries, again, another Big Six club, no fucking problem. Both your strikers injured, no fucking problem.
Yeah,
I think we're just gonna keep fucking cruising. That's what we're gonna do. And for Chelsea, now obviously they held on to the lead today to beat you guys, but the I almost forgot, pumpkin spice or original for your second one?
Just give me the original.
Right,
it's been a while.
Producer Mel.
So disappointed that we didn't forget about that.
All right, now let's pour that, and I'll go ahead and continue to talk while I'll be nice. I'll pour you a baby.
All right. That seems only fair.
Well, because you're doing 2 in one show, so.
I mean, if this one is for the Newcastle one, that's not that bad, because I almost enjoyed that game despite losing.
Look at the front of the glass.
Oh, God. Yeah, I noticed that on yours. What is this? This is ridiculous.
We bought them off of Sports Direct from Mike Ashley.
Oh, that's perfect.
We just had to do it. And that's why they're the Malort shot glasses. The Cherries just seem to keep on rolling, and it's pretty simple. With Chelsea, we already talked about it. They've been having some problems holding on to leads, and there's been just a ton of draws lately. In their last 5 until today, they were 0-3-2, which was just killing them. But and then they're still in and around the discussion for Champions League, which I think they do have a solid shot at. But the Cherries just seem to be singing right now, and nothing more apparent than that than fucking the way they whooped Newcastle at fucking St. James's Park. And Kluivert, another fucking hat trick, this time not of fucking penalties. And
not assisted by Jose Sa.
And, I was talking to Shore Billy during the match, and he was like, it seems like we're sleepwalking. And I yes and no. It wasn't like Howe didn't try to change the game. Mm-hmm. He made active subs. He changed formation. He tried to do things to impact the game. Yeah. Bournemouth just wasn't going to let it fucking happen. I mean, it was just like this almost force of will from the Cherries that I don't think I've ever seen before from them.
That one I watched the whole game, and it was such a shocking result in a way, but honestly not that surprising for me, because I don't know, the way that Bournemouth are playing currently, I think they're one of those teams where even when they don't get a result that they wanted, you can see what they're trying to build. And this is fully through gritted teeth, because I kind of fucking hate Bournemouth. Right. And I also due to my hater nature, Here, I'm drinking my Haterade. I also like want to hate the like hipster's choice of manager, Anthony Araola, but like unquestionably they're building something that like if identity in a team means something, this is the proof that it means something because like I think like they are playing greater than the sum of their parts. Conversely, I think Newcastle, I don't want to say that they're like getting shown up, but you know, like it's just that like I think that like they have gotten by on some very astute signings like Isak, and that when you come up against a team that has that kind of identity, it can kind of expose that, where I think that there are still big, you know, there's a lot of fallibility in their back line, and a team like Bournemouth can actually expose that. Whereas a team like Wolves that has zero identity currently cannot expose that whatsoever.
Well, the other thing, too, is if you have really, really short arms, you can save a penalty from Anthony Gordon. That was for you, Shorebelly. Rounding out the rest of the league, and so that happened. Liverpool 2, Brentford 0, Forest 3, Southampton 2, Fulham 2, Leicester 0, Palace 2, West Ham 0, Brighton 3, Man United 1, Manchester City 6, Ipswich 0. And we'll make some references to the games on the midweek, but also it's so we got to keep it rolling, and we have been talking for a while.
Hell yeah. About our two abject teams.
Fucking yeah, that's the best. I mean, that was a whole lot of talking that really signified nothing at all, right?
Real therapy sesh down here at the bottom of the table.
Oh my God. Brentford played perfect for 90 minutes. They played absolutely perfect for 90 minutes.
Yep.
And then Captain Chaos did what Captain Chaos gonna do. He almost got a yellow too, along with scoring the 2 goals. Would have loved to have seen both of the goals, except for the Peacock feed decided to go completely out. It's funny. In the closed group, and I'm getting text message. Everybody's like, "Did you see either one of his goals?" Because the feed went out. I was like, "The feed went out for you. The feed went out for me,
right,
too, motherfucker." Like I couldn't see anything either. This would have been a nightmare of a week if they would have gone into Brentford and finished on a 0-0 draw, especially considering they had to claw back against Forest to get that 1-1 draw, because Forest also played a damn near close to perfect game against them at the City Ground. And remember, Forest, the only team to beat Liverpool this season, and frankly, kind of deserved to beat them a second time. Like, I mean, their only fault was they didn't get a second. Yeah. That's the only thing Forest did wrong in that game.
Speaking of players that love to score in important moments, especially against former teams / coaches, Diogo Jota, RIP in his Wolves shirt. I don't know. As soon as Diogo Jota came on in that game, every Wolves fan in the world knew that he was going to score an equalizer there.
Yeah, it's the silver lining for Liverpool is that you did get that win, and that the 2 points you lost in the midweek you gained back over the weekend with Arsenal. And if taking nothing away from Forest, because they're having a phenomenal season, but if Forest were going to legitimately be in the conversation for the top spot, beating Liverpool at the City Ground had to happen, because
100%.
Liverpool is not going to slip up.
Yeah,
they're not going to make another, like, you needed this to be the slip up. You needed to be it here.
Yep.
Keeping it rolling. Pretty easy work, honestly, for Forest against Southampton. I know there was the 2 goals late, but it's very similar to what happened with Everton. It was kind of like the game was already done and dusted.
I tuned in excitedly because my friend is a Southampton fan, and I was like really hoping that would happen. Plus, like I said it before, I'm a hater, and even though I love Nuno, I'd love to see them drop points, but that's my own cross to bear.
2 things: Downs should have gotten a red, not a yellow, for that face hit on the and isn't that exactly what fucking VAR is invented for? Like,
almost useless to say that anymore.
I know you have a very special relationship with VAR. In fact, do I see it here? Damn it, I don't. The fuck VAR chant that we have on here is the Wolves fans.
It's got to be Wolves fans.
Screaming fuck VAR, specifically them. So I like that. The other thing that we need to start seriously considering is Derby County's worst point total of 10 in jeopardy of getting beat, because Southampton is at 6 right now and there are 16 games left. They should get a win here or there, but
they might get a win against Wolves.
Maybe
yeah, I know.
I mean, and this is different because that Derby team was epically bad, right?
Yeah.
This team you could look at and they're really fucking young, right? They're young. They're not a particularly great team, but they're not horrible.
Right.
But they could end up being, seriously, the worst team in the Premier League history. That is a legit possibility now.
I always wonder how the players feel about that because, in some ways, kind of like Burnley last year, playing a style that, they kind of aren't prepared to play at this level, in the Premier League. And it's when you're young and it's just well, we're just getting our minutes in, people will watch us and we'll get a move or, next year in the championship, blah, blah, blah. But it's just how much of a comfort is that to you when you then set a record like that? Probably not much. It's
no.
I'm sure that I would be fine. We're going to come in last place, but I'm going to look like kind of a star of the championship and maybe someone will come in for me. Mm-hmm. But I don't want a world record on my CV,
Right.
Right. It's
I played for the worst team ever.
Right.
You think of the two NFL teams that never won a single game, the Browns and the Lions in a single season. You will always be remembered as being a member of that team, the team that never won a fucking game. It's a hell. It doesn't matter what else you do in your career. That will be one of the first things they mention. That played for the blank team,
right?
Played for the worst Southampton team in the history of the Premiership.
I bet there are a lot of former Derby players out there that are kind of eyeing this and hoping that they do beat their record.
Fulham and Leicester. This was all Fulham. It was just 100% Fulham. And here's the little very strong, fast,
yes,
creased up bicep man scored a goal.
Yeah, I wish that I'd watched this just for that. But yeah, that was literally my highlight. Is that I looked, I was like, oh, Traore scored. That's beautiful.
Holy shit, he can put a ball on target.
Oh, I love that guy.
The Foxes have now lost 7 straight.
Not great.
I'm beginning to wonder if they're going to end up being a 3-manager team.
That's actually not a bad call, especially because I think we all kind of feel at this point that that appointment was a bit premature and a bit hopeful. So honestly, if there's a team out there that's going to have 3 managers this season, they're probably the ones.
And one thing to know about any 3-manager team, they do not survive. No. They are automatic dead on with a bullet. Every single team that has gone to a 3rd manager has gone down. So that is not a good outlier for them. So
just make sure that you appoint the manager that you want in the championship.
Mm-hmm. Mateta gets a brace for Palace, and Mavrapava gets the second yellow card. For me, Palace is figuring out exactly what they need to do to finish somewhere between 12th and 15th. And considering that the start that they had, that's good. Now, I will say they are below expectations because I think going into the season, even losing Elise, they had signed some pretty good pieces, and you're like, okay, this team's ready to kind of take that next step. Finishing 10th last year, you're like, there's some good talent on this team. So I think they're going to figure out a way to survive. But the problem is going to be now they're going to get depleted at the end of the Eze's gone. Eze's getting signed by somebody. Somebody big's going to want him. Yeah. And he's going to want to go. It's just what it's going to be. For West Ham, I know we kind of talked a bunch about them with Alan here a couple of shows ago. I will say the one notable thing is without Bowen, they are really hurting. Like it's one thing to be, they've always figured out a way to deal with kind of having a striker than not having a striker, willings, won'tings, like that. But Bowen is such a key component.
How many times can they play Wolves this season? That's your answer for willings.
Yeah. But that is, for me, it ultimately comes down to not having Bowen. Like, I think I think Potter will get more out of this team when he has Bowen to add the speed, because that also takes attention off of Cunha in the middle and lets him do more too.
That's probably true. The haters currently are feasting as a hater myself, and West Ham is one of those. I don't personally hate West Ham as a team, but the whole Lopetegui saga really made me embittered towards their situation, and I think that's a team where it feels mean to say like, oh, they're overperforming when like they're doing way better than Wolves. But at the same time, like, I think that like for the first half of the season, they were severely overperforming. They spent so much money on players that I think they should not have spent that much money on. And now they're going to struggle. And I think that like Potter's going to see them through it, and they need a plan after that.
Right.
But I am like 0% surprised.
Well, I also think that plan is going to include life without Bowen, because I think Bowen's the next big walk away.
Yeah,
I think big clubs are going to come for him.
As long as he's healthy, easily.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, our annual meeting between Manchester United and Brighton goes like this.
In my way downtown, walking fast. I'm a seagull. Go fuck yourself.
Brighton loves to ruin Manchester United's world.
Oh my God, this was so sweet to me.
They beat them so badly that what's his name? I still don't bother to know it. The manager said, we are currently the worst Manchester United team in the history of the club. And they've had teams that have gotten relegated. Yeah. He has deemed them to be the worst Manchester United.
This is one of the few things that gives me joy this season, because Wolves are a shit show right now, and I think that we're better than this, and I want our players to have better. But seeing a team like this, which is just like decades at this point of mismanagement,
right?
And to the point where a manager can say that, and all the headlines, all the tabloid headlines really wanted it to be a big moment. Like, oh my God, can you imagine that this manager said this about this team, this beautiful team in our England? And yet anybody who's a fan, even pundits, even, people who should have some kind of ego to protect, would say like, I don't know, he's just speaking the truth. Like
that checks.
Yeah. Spot the lie. I don't see one. Like,
the desk for Peacock, the NBC sports team, the Robbies were like, yeah, that checks. That's refreshing to hear.
They're a great example, because
the manager actually was like,
they wanted to make it like, okay, so what do you think of this shocking statement? And it's like, well, is he wrong? Like, objectively, it's hard to argue. I mean, yes, like relegations, previous generations, sure. But like, I don't know, Wolves played them and beat them. And I can tell you from watching them then, they have deep, as a fan of a team that has deep cultural problems right now, especially involving the board, that team has deep cultural problems that will not be solved with a new manager or new players.
That club has been the biggest and best club in the world since the mid 80s.
Right.
Like when Everton and Liverpool were battling out for titles in 85, 86, and 87, which 85 and 87 were the last two Everton titles. United was in and around it. Yeah. In 85, what stopped Everton from winning the treble was Manchester United beating them 2-1 in the FA Cup final. Like, United has, and then they slipped a little, and then Sir Alex came on. I mean, this is the biggest club in the world. And you're right. It's just, there's so much culture issue there.
Yeah.
It's been so mismanaged by ownership and the board. And they literally have to sit there, get kicked in the teeth.
Right.
And have him figure out how to make it work with
Right.
the players that he has. He can't make a full overhaul next year.
Right.
He can only add a few pieces, lose a few pieces, let people play out a contract. Because like older players, like, you know, the Casemiros and Ericssons of the world, they're just going to have to play through their deal.
Yeah.
Like they're not like, these aren't players you can just suddenly sell. Like even Saudi's going to be like, yeah, we'll give you a couple quid for him.
Yeah. That's an interesting take. Let me offer you an alternative. What if it continues to be a struggle and they sign another like trendy manager and then sign another 300 million pounds worth of players? Do you think that would change things around?
No.
Because maybe they will just continue to do the same thing.
Oh, I don't doubt that they will. I mean, it's funny. There's been some TikTok videos I've been watching lately of Englishmen talking to other Englishmen about NFL teams that they would want to get into and how to compare them.
This is some content I need to get in on.
How they would compare them to Premier League sides. And the one universally I hear every single time is Manchester United is the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
Like, and ain't wrong. It is 100%.
What's funny is it used to be the other way around. It used to be Americans getting into the Premier League, and they'd be like, which team should I follow? And it's like, Manchester United, Dallas Cowboys. But there was always kind of this optimism like, oh, but they're big and they'll be back soon.
Right.
And it's like, well, maybe.
No. If you want to follow an NFL team that is exactly like your football club and you're a United supporter, this is because it's the exact same kind of ownership situation. It's the exact same kind of splash cash. It is try to fix it every year. Each year is going to be championship or Super Bowl and all of that. And
beautiful.
And it just never is, and it implodes. And we've spent too much time fucking talking about them. Is City back?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. It's Ipswich. I want to be able to shit on Ipswich, but I literally am owing my entire existence to being better on them at goal differentials. So
it's again for me. The early comparison that we were making as a whole was Ipswich to Luton Town, and this is a little. Right? If it's gonna play out the same. As the pressure builds, Ipswich is not going to know how to handle it. They have not been here. Now, what I worry about for Ipswich is if you go down, do you suffer the same agony that Luton's handling, which Luton is second to fucking last place right now in the championship, which is like, if we remember, teams like Sunderland who went all the way down, and then a team like Portsmouth who went all the way down. And they also, of course, had a little bit of problem with actually being solvent as a club, you know, and as you know, being able to pay people and stuff. But I gotta just, I think what we're going to find out about City all comes down to this weekend, and it also applies directly for their opponent too, with Chelsea.
Yeah.
Sure money.
Would it surprise you to hear that Graham missed his bet again?
Not good gambling.
So let's see here. Graham says need to get back on track, down $2,000. Liverpool over Ipswich, Newcastle over Southampton, Arsenal over Wolves, Brighton over Everton, and Tottenham over Leicester for plus 423. So just took all straight favorites. Problem is what he doesn't know is Brighton has not gotten points at home against Everton in 8 home appearances. And
Wild.
They've lost 6 of them.
That's not a stat I knew.
It's a stat I know because it's in my bet. And because I am up $883 because I hit my bet the last time you guys were here. And
Big Sam's Lock of the Week.
We all love, Mel, we love round numbers. Did you know 30% of the time, it works 100% of the time, baby. And exactly why Graham is not going to hit his
9-way parlay
is because for the fuck of it, and for the reasons I just said, and I got really good odds, Everton to beat Brighton at plus 440. Ooh. I do not know why they gave Brighton negative. I mean, yes, Brighton kicked the shit out of Everton at the start of the year. Brighton does not beat Everton at the MX. They don't. Now, this means they are going to kick the shit out of us because I just said that. But one of the most recognizable ones would be the year under Frank, before that Palace game that kept us up. We went into their building and beat them 5-1. And we were up 4-0 at the end of the first half.
We're currently, I think, on a double jinx from what you just said, and I really desperately need them to beat Everton just to give me any kind of life. So I'm going to say that Brighton are definitely going to beat Everton.
Okay,
because
no problem. I got you there. I got you. That's going to wrap it up. Danny, parting words. Pub your shit.
Last time I, took my time spouting stuff about Wolves women, which I will continue to do because they're amazing.
Excellent.
And I love them. But yes, what I really should do is mention that I am normally on Whole Lot of Wolves podcast. That's the first Wolves podcast in the U.S. We're doing our live taping tomorrow, so you can check us out on YouTube there, and you'll see a lot of the same takes, although, I'll try to keep it less despairing because I know that we all need to move past it, and maybe by the time I've slept, this game against Chelsea will be a little bit more distant in my memory. But yeah, go check out Whole Lotta Wolves, LOTTA, Whole Lotta Wolves.
Fantastic. Thank you very, very much for sitting in. Been a great time chatting with you. And everybody, I leave you with this thought. Why bother spending time reading about things? Everybody's an authority in a free land. Till next week, everybody.
God.